Mist sank over Fog Hollow in rolling skeins, as soft and stubborn as wool soaked in moonlight. Every year the drizzle arrived the same week as the lantern floating ceremony, and every year townsfolk pretended they were surprised. They shrugged on slickers, lit paraffin torches along Driftwood Wharf, and crowded the crooked shoreline to watch candlelit orbs bob into the shallows. The ritual was supposed to coax good dreams for the living and calm seas for the dead, though no one agreed where the tradition began. Like the fog, it simply belonged. Celia Bloom set a final bundle of water hyacinth and marigold on her display cart, rubbed rain off her freckled nose, and checked her watch. 8:17 p.m. The lanterns were scheduled to launch at past. She still had time to sell a few more garlands. The hyacinths meant safe passage, the marigolds remembrance. Old superstitions insisted you shouldn't send a boat of light without blossoms to keep misfortune occupied. Celia's late mother used to swear that any raft launched bare would drift until tragedy claimed the household that released it. It was exactly the sort of eerie folklore that made customers buy 2 garlands instead of 1, so Celia kept the story alive like a prized orchid. A gust carried the tail of Mayor Luther Crane's cloak across her awning, snapping Celia from her reverie. Crane strode down the pier on polished leather boots, an entourage of aldermen and amateur photographers flanking him. He cut a severe figure, long grey hair tied at the nape, shoulders fastened by a ceremonial chain of office whose links resembled interlocking talons. Even in drizzle the chain gleamed. People parted as if a blade skimmed their laces. "Miss Bloom," Crane called, halting before her stall. "Your hyacinths, a fine touch." He plucked a stem without asking and twirled it between gloved fingers. Though one wonders if they actually do the job. "If they didn't, sir," Celia replied with a calm she didn't feel, "Fog Hollow would have sunk by now." A few bystanders laughed. The mayor's mouth twitched, uncertain which edge of the smile he owned. Celia had never grown comfortable around him. When he visited Blossom and Root, her shop on Candlewick Street, he stayed just long enough to make obscure remarks about municipal aesthetics and the importance of order. He'd once told her a town's soul could be measured by how straight its hedgerows ran. Celia thought souls were messier, bramble-shaped, prone to sweet, unexpected blooms. But she kept that to herself. Crane placed the hyacinth on the tray of a waiting intern. "Let's get this on the raft, shall we?" His voice deepened into pageantry. "For peace, profit, and posterity." Across the wharf, volunteers finished lashing 4 pine skids into a platform roughly 8 feet square. They covered it in pale linen and tacked petitions, resolutions, and scribbled wishes to its posts with brass thumbtacks. This was the new tradition the mayor had introduced last year. A single raft of wishes for the entire township, larger and grander than the tiny individual lantern boats folk had set afloat since anyone could remember. Crane claimed consolidation fostered unity. Quietly, most townspeople missed the old way but went along. It was easier than arguing with a man who wrote the bylaws. Celia watched the mayor step onto the broad raft, head bowed as if listening for applause. The linen sagged under his weight. 2 aides handed him a brass lighter. Usually he burned a single commemorative candle at the center, signifying the collective spark. Tonight, though, the mayor produced a second candle from inside his cloak, this one black beeswax flecked with something metallic, and fitted it beside the traditional white taper. A murmur rippled through watchers, but Crane, unbothered, struck the lighter. Blue flame touched 2 wicks. Gold and obsidian glow spread. Celia felt something tighten behind her sternum. She couldn't say why. Maybe the way Crane's eyes flicked shoreward, calculating and satisfied, or how both candles guttered sideways, though wind was calm. She glanced around. No one else seemed troubled. In the back row, a few teenagers live-streamed. At the front, Councilwoman Dory Pritchard performed a small clap that others imitated. The mayor lifted his arms. "Let us send our hopes across the water glass and into the waiting arms of dawn." His baritone wrapped the docks like a velvet noose. Rope moorings were untied, gentle push from long poles. The raft slid away, skirts of linen kissing water. The mayor remained aboard, per custom, planning to stand until he cleared the first two buoys, then leap back onto a municipal dinghy piloted by harbour patrol. It was always a theatrical moment, one the local newspaper captioned, "Crane takes flight." But the dinghy idled 15 yards downstream, engine rattling. Its pilot peered at a jammed prop line. The raft drifted faster than anyone anticipated, propelled by a current that neither tide charts nor veteran fishermen had predicted. Mayor?" an alderman called. "Hold position, sir. We'll—" Crane pivoted to the dinghy, preparing to signal. A low crunch sounded. Wood splinter struck rock some fathom below, and the platform jolted. The mayor lost his footing. He pitched forward, struck the deck face first, and did not move. Gasps cut through fog. Celia pressed hands to her mouth. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Just the hush of muttering water, the hiss of lanterns hugging mist. Then the raft began rotating clockwise, slow, relentless spiral, and Mayor Crane slid with it. He rolled off the deck into the water, but instead of bobbing to the surface, his body caught beneath the linen as if pinned by invisible hands. Panic erupted. Councilwoman Pritchard shouted for life rings, flare lamps. 2 harbour officers dove, vanishing under milky chop. Seconds passed. When they surfaced, both shook their heads. The mayor had disappeared. And so, during Fog Hollow's lantern-floating ceremony, the town mayor drifted away face down on his raft of wishes, inspiring florist Celia Bloom to trace dimly lit motives that twisted through roots far older than hyacinths, far darker than fog. The inquest convened 3 days later inside the old grist mill, chosen because the town hall suddenly lacked neutrality. A black ribbon now drooped across its gables. Rain hammered slate roofs. Celia arrived with a bouquet of white bellflowers, Constancy, and set them on a window-sill near the temporary dais. She had not been summoned, but spectators were allowed. Sheriff Lee Montrose opened proceedings. Preliminary findings: accidental death by drowning, but unusual factors warrant deeper analysis. He was a broad man with a soprano cough and the habit of tapping his pen on his badge. The harbour patrol retrieved the mayor's body at dawn yesterday, 2 nautical miles east of the cove. No life vest, linen wrapped around his ankle. He paused. Coroner discovered contusions on his temple and both wrists. Celia scanned rows of benches. Alderwoman Pritchard dabbed eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Deputy Clerk Simon Glasser shuffled paperwork. 12 citizens formed a seated jury, heads angled like wilted lilies. At back, leaning against a siloed wall, stood Avery Crane, the mayor's estranged son. Avery wore hiking boots, a thrift shop parka, and an expression equal parts grief and vindication. He hadn't lived in Fog Hollow since dropping out of college, amid rumours of grand larceny, though no charges stuck. Celia remembered delivering geraniums to Avery's mother when Mrs. Crane was ill. The boy had answered, too thin for his frame, eyes like green glass looking for a crack to cut. Sheriff Montrose introduced the first witness, Augustus Sharp, harbour patrol pilot. Sharp recounted the stuck prop line, the delay, the disappearance. Cross-examination circled the question of sabotage. Could someone have sliced the line beforehand? Sharp shrugged. Would have required diving gear and guts, the audience murmured. Next came Kayla Morse, volunteer carpenter for the raft. She insisted she'd inspected the planks. No rot, no loose nails. Yet one skid snapped when the raft hit rock. Sheriff asked where they sourced wood. From Thornwall Pines, Kayla answered, same as always. Celia noted Sharp's eyebrows spike. Thornwall sat upstream from a long-shuttered tannery. Its soil carried trace mercury. Still, the pine lumber had never failed before. At midday recess, Celia stepped outside for air. The mill's side courtyard smelled of ironweed and drainage. She almost collided with Avery Crane, who smoked a hand-rolled cigarette beneath the eave. He exhaled sideways. "You're the flower lady." "Florist," she corrected. "Celia." "Yeah, Mum liked your arrangements." His voice cracked. Rainwater beaded on his lashes. "You think my father drowned by accident?" Celia studied him. He resembled his father only in profile. Front on, softer bones. "I'm not sure what I think." Avery flicked ash. "I know what everyone else thinks. That it was me. Or that I wanted it. Truth? Maybe I did, once, in a stupid teenage way. But not like this." His fingers shook. He was ruthless, but he was still Dad. He pinched the cigarette out. "If you learn anything, will you tell me?" Celia nodded before caution intervened. Back at Blossom and Root that evening, Celia replayed the ceremony's images. Black candle, snapped skid, linen anchor, bruised wrists. She pulled her mother's folio from a shelf, a leather ledger crammed with clippings, folklore, horticultural odds and ends. Under ceremonies, an entry discussed lantern floats across coastal towns. One note, margin scribbled, caught Celia's eye. "Beware black beeswax, employed by grief-mongers to divert luck. Must be quenched by salt water or blood." Celia traced the line, remembering the second candle. Who gave it to Crane? Why combine it with the white? Superstition might be quaint, but Crane was meticulously image-conscious. He wouldn't risk bad optics without reason. She flipped pages until she found a sketch of an emblem, a serpent coiled around a sheaf of wheat, inked as if from old woodcut. Mother had captioned it, "Order of the Meridian, defunct, local chapters rumoured." Celia recognised the emblem. She'd seen a modern rendering inside Town Hall lobby, etched into the terrazzo floor. Crane's chain of office looked similar, interlocking scaled links. Could the mayor have revived an old secret society ritual under cover of municipal pageantry? Somewhere in that tangle lay motive, dimly lit, but there. The following morning, Celia visited Thornwall Pines. Mist clung to needles like pearl dust. At the clearing where raft lumber was harvested, sawdust lay in scattered piles, but one stump bore a fresh notch, deep, irregular. Celia crouched, traced her fingertip along gouges revealing darker heartwood, almost black. Rot? No, she reasoned. Discoloration had a metallic sheen. She sniffed and recoiled. Sharp, tannic note akin to old batteries. Mercury. Footfalls behind her. Kayla Morse emerged, hood down, axe slung across shoulder. "You're trespassing," Kayla said, not hostile, more fatigued. "I'm curious," Celia replied, standing. "Did you know this tree was sick?" Kayla's gaze drifted away. "Lumber orders come from city planning. We cut what they flag. Who flagged this tree? Simon Glasser, Kayla muttered, naming the deputy clerk. Said Mayor wanted fresh pines, didn't trust last year's stockpile. Fresh but poisoned, Celia murmured. Kayla shrugged. Maybe he wanted it weak. Something about symbolism? Crane's big on spectacle. Was, Celia corrected gently. Kayla sighed. Look, I just swing an axe. Celia thanked her, hiked back to her van, mind churning. If Crane selected compromised lumber, had he plotted some staged mishap? But why risk his life? Unless he thought he'd exit before failure. Something interrupted that plan. The dinghy, the prop line, maybe the black candle, a sabotage within sabotage. She needed to talk to Simon Glasser. Town hall corridors smelled of lemon oil and morning lilies Celia herself had arranged. She found Simon in the records annex sorting file boxes. Glasser was mid-30s, sandy hair, a face cheeks forgot to colour. When Celia mentioned Thornwall, he rattled into defensive disclaimers. I authorised what Mayor Crane marked on the spreadsheet. That's it. Did you know the timber was contaminated? She asked. Simon's Adam's apple bobbed. It met minimum structural code. Minimum being rotten, he bristled. Do you have an appointment, Miss Bloom? Instead of answering, Celia leaned over a ledger on the desk. Municipal expenditures, ceremonial. Recent entries tallied $8,400 for lantern event enhancements, $6,200 for legacy grant outreach, and a single payment of $2,000 to Eclipse Consortium. What's Eclipse Consortium? She asked. Simon shut the book. A cultural consultancy. Also known as? He hesitated. Order of the Meridian, Incorporated. Mayor's pet project. There it was, serpent and wheat. Celia pressed. Simon eventually confessed that Crane had been planning a regional summit for next equinox, using the lantern ceremony to draw investor attention. The order's creed spoke of cycles, sacrifice, rebirth. The black candle symbolized necessary darkness preceding dawn. All showmanship, Simon insisted, meant to reassure donors the town embraced its heritage. Donors like who? Simon looked at Floor. Marrow Vanguard Capital. Celia knew the name, a mining conglomerate eyeing the coastal ridge for rare earth elements. Locals opposed. The mayor touted job creation. If Crane could prove Fog Hollow relished tradition, perhaps Marrow would fund infrastructure in exchange for extraction rights. Celia's pulse quickened. A staged scare, a raft wobble, a heroic leap, a visible black and white symbolism could amplify media coverage. But someone had turned scare to fatality. Who stood to benefit from the mayor's death? Environmentalists? An ambitious councilwoman? His own family? That night, Celia found Avery Crane waiting outside her shop. Street lamps cast halos through mist, a bouquet of sodium glow. I heard you've been nosing around, Avery said without ire. Figured I'd donate a clue. He produced a small vial. Inside lay a needle-thin filament of wire, frayed ends crusted with algae. Salvaged from the dinghy's prop line, Avery explained. Sheriff let me inspect the boat because, well, son of the deceased privileges. This wire matches spools my father kept in his study. Guy tied fishing flies to relax. Except this length is coated with gummy resin, maybe tar, purposefully designed to foul gears. Celia tilted vial in lamplight. Are you implying your father sabotaged the dinghy so he'd appear stranded, then? Then someone else sabotaged him. Avery pocketed the vial. I don't buy accidental. Dad rarely made mistakes twice. Someone used his own drama against him. Who had access to his study? Celia asked. Councilwoman Pritchard. They met there often, door locked. I'd hear them debate budgets, strategy. Avery's jaw tightened. She's next in line for interim mayor. A motive as old as daisies. Celia attended the ceremony's postponed conclusion, an ad hoc night vigil where townsfolk set individual lanterns afloat as they used to. She carried a single lily in memory of anyone whose plans turned against them. Councilwoman Pritchard officiated, face haloed by torchlight, voice choked with solemnity. Celia observed the chain of office draped over Pritchard's shoulders. While shorter than Crane's, Lynx bore identical talon motif. At her collar gleamed a pin, a serpent around wheat, black enamel. After speeches, Celia approached. "Lovely service, Councilwoman." "Thank you, Ms. Bloom. Healing begins with tradition." Celia touched the pin. "Order of the Meridian?" Pritchard's expression flicked wary. "Historical Society, nothing more. I read their bylaws. Highest principle is equilibrium. Where prosperity outweighs purpose, a weight must be removed. Balanced scale, yes?" Pritchard's smile thinned. Celia continued. "Your old friend Luther Crane tipped that scale, I imagine. You, on the other hand, understood the town's resistance to the mining deal, couldn't stop him politically without losing donor money. But if an accident tarnished the agreement—" "Careful," Pritchard whispered. "Accusation is a weed that strangles." "Then uproot it," Celia said. "Explain the black candle." The councilwoman inhaled damp air. "Symbolic misfire," she said finally. "He insisted on adding it. I warned it might alarm superstitious citizens. He laughed at superstition." "You replaced the lumber too, didn't you? Ensured a fault line." Pritchard's eyes shimmered. Anger or tears, Celia wasn't sure. "He replaced the lumber. I merely failed to stop him. I loved Luther once, Miss Bloom, before ambition devoured him, before he threatened to sign away our water for a strip mine. The order teaches that cycles correct themselves. I didn't strike the blow. Nature did, via hubris, rotted wood, and fate's current." "Yet you arranged the dinghy delay," Celia pressed. "Wire in the propeller." Pritchard glanced at lanterns drifting. "Obstruction isn't assault. The sheriff will find no fingerprints. Fog did the rest." Celia stepped back. She realized Pritchard had spoken softly enough that only water carried words, no witness. A confession disguised as philosophy. An iris of truth hidden inside layers of petals. Bruise it, and scent evaporated. Sheriff Montrose closed the inquest the next day. Verdict: death by misadventure, no foul play established. The jury, perhaps relieved, signed documents quickly. Insurance paid. Newspapers called it tragic. A week later, Marrow Vanguard withdrew its proposal, citing community instability. The Order of the Meridian receded into rumour again. Interim Mayor Pritchard announced a return to individual lantern floats next year to honour authentic heritage. Celia sat behind Blossom and Root's counter, trimming stems for anemones. Avery entered carrying a bag of bagels. "Breakfast, detective," he said, setting them down. "Sheriff closed the case." "I know," Celia wiped scissors. "Some truths bloom underground." Avery studied her. "Dory Pritchard?" Celia didn't answer. She took a hyacinth, tucked it into a vase. "Hyacinths mean safe passage," she said, "but only when paired with honesty." She met Avery's eyes. "Tell me, do you plan to stay in Fog Hollow?" He exhaled. "Someone needs to keep an eye on legacies." He pulled from his jacket the vial with propeller wire. "Stories get told in what's left behind." Celia nodded. She turned the shop sign to closed, stepped outside with Avery, and watched fog roll up Candlewick Street. Lanterns from the vigil still drifted offshore, pinpricks of stubborn light on grey water. Secrets, too, drifted, face down or face up, according to weight and will. Florists she knew merely traced the stems. The motives grew where sun rarely touched, but sometimes, in dim glow, shapes became discernible enough to tend.